So Keir Starmer and Ed Miliband have excitedly lauded the introduction of carbon capture usage and storage technology this week. But is he really putting the country first by committing nearly 22 billion quid? Remember, that was the size of the black hole. Well, they've filled it with carbon towards this Labour green energy project. The same amount, I repeat, as that infamous black hole. Where have they found the money? Is the carbon capture package a load of net zero, hot air, seconds out? It's round one. That's a little preview of my view, so I'm going to let Kai take it away. Ding, ding.
Well, it wouldn't be a mudslinging match, would it, on the Saturday Five without having a bit of a jab with Darren on green energy and net zero. Now, my view on this is pretty simple. I think if we're trying to hold this back, if we think that we can lag and stop our responsibilities when it comes to net zero compared to other countries, then that's a joke. And frankly, this kind of package is the best way for us to be going about this business. Now, this is a £22 billion investment package. Now, what you won't hear, of course, is it's over the next 25 years. So really, I'm going to be arguing that maybe it should be a bit higher than that. And I'll tell you for why. Taken with Great British Energy and the National Wealth Fund that are also being rolled out, I think this is exactly the kind of package of measures that will support different parts of the country, many of which have deindustrialised in the last few decades, will support them into a new industrial future. Now, only last year, the whiz kids over at Silicon Valley invested $17.7 billion in this technology alone. Now, I think that speaks for itself, but if that's not quite enough, big business, big industrials, cement manufacturers, and so on are all piling in on this and are expected also to invest an additional £8 billion to that 22, at least, over the course of that agreement. Now, all of this, again, you won't hear how many jobs are going to be created, at least 4,000 directly and 50,000 indirectly, and that doesn't even cover the other programs that are going to be announced over the next few months, I'm sure, in this new drive of investment. This isn't hot air, this isn't money into thin air, it's putting jobs right where we need them in the UK and replacing some of the industries that, sadly, in the past few years, we've seen decimated by the Conservative government.
But before I answer all of those substantive points, would you answer the question of this money, why take it away? You mentioned it's over a period of a quarter of a century. Well, hang on, the pensioners getting payments, you know, that would have been going on for quite some time. They said there wasn't enough money in the coffers for that. Where are they finding the funding for this measure?
Creating infrastructure, building infrastructure, making investment is a different thing entirely from deciding where the budget is being spent. Now, allocating those amounts comes completely separately to deciding where the future infrastructure investment is going to come from.
I'll tell you what this
and working. I can't believe that you're on the side of Greenpeace on this. I'm not sure if you've joined Just Stop Oil, but they're actually one of the only groups that are opposing this. You've got big business, big tech, all coming in on this. Yes, the technology can be flawed,
no, hang on,
but we need to throw the kitchen sink on this.
Right, the point you make on big business saying they're all up for this, well, I wonder why that might be. Could it be because they're being given a bung in the form of taxpayer cash to actually swallow and gobble all of this up, like the rest of the green investment that we've ploughed into these big businesses over the past, since 2008, when Ed Miliband put in place the Climate Change Act? By the way, that government put in place these kinds of measures. They set up an exploration of carbon capture technology, and it was determined that the subsidy would be so large that you could never, ever make it market friendly. It could never work because the subsidy to the taxpayer would be so expensive that it simply wasn't worth doing. What we have done, though, in the interim is said, you speak to us about jobs. Tell that to the people who have just lost their jobs in steelmaking. Tell that to the people in North Sea oil and gas who've just lost their jobs and in the wider supply chain, where we are no longer actually sourcing our own oil and gas and our coal manufacturing as well. Coal we still need, by the way, for your great big whopping subsidised wind farms that we can no longer get in this country. We'll have to get it from Russia and Australia. Well, guess what? That's one hell of a lot of carbon emissions, much more than little old Doris freezing in her home because she can't afford her gas bill, thanks to what you people have actually done to this economy and to our country. You have sacrificed the working class on the altar of greenery, Greta Thunberg-esque, and on big business who's growing fat on taxpayer money. I think it's a damn disgrace, and I think, yeah, this is more example of big business getting fat on all this stuff. I can't believe a Marxist like you is talking about the fact that this is good for big business. You should be on the side of the little people. That's whose side I'm on. Net zero ain't. It's on the side of big fat cats and vested interests.
Exactly. I won't take any of this from you, right? The last time I talked to a real coal miner who was still mining was 2 weeks ago. The last time I talked to a farmer was 2 days ago. And I'll tell you what, they don't have petty grievances about net zero, taking up all this cash, losing out on all the spending that we would be getting otherwise. They're worried about the state of their industries, British industries, farming, steelmaking, you mentioned. They're worried about what happens after those industries slowly, become less relevant. And they know that they'll become less relevant. But what they want is a plan.
Policy decisions that you've made. A plan. It's a net zero plan that green elites and the Davos set, which Sir Keir Starmer says he prefers over Westminster, and that'll be because there is power removed from the very people that you speak of, the people that are being phased out. That's farmers, that's steel workers, anyone in energy-intensive industries, Nissan in Sunderland. You are saying to them their future is not in these industries in this country. And I think
not at all.
You're supposed to be on the side of Labour in this country. You're on the side of big money and vested interests, and I think that's a crying shame.
What is needed in these industries,
we're have
unlike...
to
yeah, of course.
Yeah. All right, go to gbnews.com/your say to actually give your views on who you think actually had the upper edge in that debate, who you agree with. Let us know. Next, in the bunch of five, we're saying good night to... I've just come back from 2 party conferences this season. You can guess which one I didn't go to. But it was once said that politics is showbiz for ugly people. And let me tell you, whoever said that was absolutely bang on. If you're a beauty pageant, Westminster ain't the place for you. But as I knocked back the booze, Gaza style, like a fishing rod waiting for a Raoul Moat to turn up, I was struck by the energy and raw grit of the folks at Reform's party conference. And I mean this with all of my heart. It was a sea of ordinary people, not a single corporate lobbyist in sight. There were no big sponsors or professional backslappers trying to sell us the next green revolution while cashing in behind the scenes. Ed Miliband. That's more than I can say for the other lot. The uni-party gatherings were stuffed full of the usual suspects. But this was real people power. And I loved every minute of it, with a pint in hand from 11 a.m. Now, over at the Conservative Party conference, they were rolling out promises like sweets at Halloween, leave the ECHR, slash foreign aid, take down identity politics, cut migration, and even throw out the outrageous idea that all cultures are equally valid, one that the BBC took great exception to. Does that sound familiar to you at home, though? Well, I wonder. If it does, my friends, that might be because they were clicking copy and paste from the Reform Party manifesto. It's all got me thinking. Why bother with the carbon copy when the real deal is already here? Reform are already delivering with a, fraction of the budget, fewer activists, fewer bases around the country, but far more in the way of heart. They're actually winning local election seats, like Martin in Blackpool, where they just ousted Labour with nearly 39% of the vote. My friends, people are waking up, and the Reform Party is the answer. So let us say this loud and clear. I'm not convinced by any of the Tory hopefuls, and I'm not convinced that they can win back the so-called Red Wall with a few sound bites on a Birmingham stage. But Britain needs reform, and there are signs, really evident, it's ready to vote for it. I'm assured that you agree with me.
You know what? I've been nodding away because what's obvious is that there is a groundswell of support that we've seen for
Are you joining Reform?
I won't be doing that. As you know, I'm a paid-up Labour Party member. Didn't get to go to conference. Actually, haven't been to Labour conference. I've been to Tory conference as part of my job previously. But anyway, I think the problem they have now is translating that groundswell movement into, exactly as you say, seats in the elections that are coming up. Local elections next year, the Senate elections in 2026, actually, where there have been UKIP members previously until very recently. But the problem that they have in doing that is they need a really slick, organised campaign, the like of which that Labour famously used to have really strong grassroots across each constituency, and that is difficult.
Yes.
And they need to make sure that each of those candidates are serious, are on message, know their stuff, while still sticking to exactly what Reform voters want to hear.
Yeah.
And that's going to be difficult.
Well, I want to put that to Adam, because you follow this every single day as part of your job.
Yeah.
But do you trust that Reform won't end up like UKIP? And what I mean by that is factionalism, arguing with each other.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the whole point of bringing on Zia Yusuf as the chairman is really to manage a lot of this, manage the discipline of the party, fundraising. Basically, he's CEO of Reform Inc., if you like, and that's the point of his job. But you're right. Yeah, they need to do really well in these locals to prove they've maintained that momentum. I think they will. I mean, you know, I do think the energy is there. The conference reflects that. Yeah. Time will tell. But ultimately, the problem is does just keep the right fractured, and therefore under first past the post actually keep Labour in power. But now, I'm not commenting on, you know, what I think, which, fine, whatever. It's just the reality of the first past post system, isn't it, really?
Yes, it is. And I think that system's outdated and needs to go as well, to be honest. But the question I was going to put to you, Renee, is I don't think, and I focus particularly on the Red Wall, because obviously it's a part of the country that I know pretty well, but I was actually am of the view that the Tories can't easily win back there because people feel fundamentally betrayed. They went out, and some of them for the very first time, many of them for the very first time, voted Conservative in 2019. Now, they feel, I think justifiably so, utterly betrayed. Yeah. And I don't think that's easily won back.
So I think there's a double thing going on here, because I don't think that is going to be easily won back for the Tories. But I also think the Red Wall seats that Labour won, they won purely because of anger on the Tories. And if these people see in their constituencies a groundswell for reform, I think Reform will pick up those Red Wall seats, and then it starts to change.
Yeah, and Reform finished second on many of the Red Wall seats. And unfortunately, as you said, we have a first-past-the-post system in which Reform had 4 million votes and they only got 5 seats, whereas they should get 150 seats, you know, and this is not OK for a democracy.
Very briefly, Stephen Pound, the former Labour MP, he says that actually Labour should be more alive to the reform threat. Would you accept that, or do you think actually they ain't ever going to be challengers to reform?
Well, I think that's that's what we'll see now, because I think the Tory party are too toxic, and they will be for a few years. Now, the problem that there is now is there's an enthusiasm gap where Reform voters are actually, like 67% have a favourable view of Reform as a party. It's unheard of. Even after the Labour landslide, only 35% of Labour voters think the same. So actually now Labour need to catch up.
Okie dokie, we'll discuss more of that later on, because coming up you're going to be discussing whether the